across the district or maybe in a different district in a completely 100% segregated classroom with no access to the curriculum and no friends and not know anybody in her neighborhood. So that didn't make sense to me at all because of that. Because it made sense to me that we bring people, if I take her away, I'm saying to the other kids in that neighborhood, she's not valuable. She's not an important person to know. She has no gifts to share. So we can take her away. And that to me was a visual that people were gonna see. And that's kind of what gave me this journey, so to speak, that I'm on. And then of course IDEA came along and it tells us that we're not supposed to remove kids from the general education classroom because they need modifications. So not only did I have a vision and I had experience, but then I had this little law that I kept in my wallet all the time just in case I needed it. And this gave that permission for us to for her to have access to that general education curriculum. And then it was really looking at creating classrooms for all. And what did that look like? And I had a little tiny vision of the world. I had one little child who I had a dream for. And I had no idea what the whole landscape looked like. You know, I didn't. I just went forth with that vision, with that dream and hope for her. So on the way, I had to learn a lot. I had to go through school. I didn't pay attention the first time, so I had to do it all over again. You know, I was like that Billy Madison. Did you ever see that old movie where, yeah, that was me as the mom. So I went to my school and I said, could we, you know, I want her to be included. And they said, well, we've never done this before. And I realized that people would say, we don't do it that way. And I would go, you know what, you can't say that. Because my cousin lived in a state institution, and not that long later, my child is going home to her community and living at home. So we've never done this before. You know, you can't say we do it this way because we're in a new territory. And we're paving a way. Humans with disabilities have never had these doors open to them ever in the history of the world. So let's figure it out from the beginning. Let's just start from scratch. And literally we started from scratch. Teachers I would be sitting at like with you guys, and we'd have pieces of paper and we'd have pencils. And we had no idea what we were doing. And we're like, okay, you know, how do we start this, you know? So it was actually fun. We had like a think tank. It was actually exciting and crazy. And I went to team meetings every single week, which is weird. And I also adapted curriculum because I would go in and I would say, well, we have to adapt curriculum. And they were like, well, who's going to do that? And I'm like, looking around. Because I imagined, and this is my imagination, because I have a kind of a vivid imagination, that there was a room in the back and they had like frogs. And you'd pull out a frog, you know, file, and it'd be like all kinds of stuff on frogs. And there'd be frogs for you, and there'd be frogs for you, and, you know, the frogs for the gifted frog guy, you know, and we'd have them all in files, and they'd pull a point, and all you'd have to do is go in there and go, frog, 2nd grade. Kid with who's a little pokey, you know? I don't know what I was thinking. I just figured ancient Rome, right? Who's gonna adapt the curriculum? I'm like, do you know how long ago ancient Rome was? Are you telling me there's nobody that adapted ancient Rome since ancient Rome? That's a really long time, you know? Well, it took me years to figure out that there wasn't any of that there wasn't a little magic room in the back. So I said, well, I'll adapt curriculum. I had no idea what I was doing again, you know, but I thought I'm not backing down because we just need to figure out how to do it. And I had a wonderful time adapting curriculum. I'd go find people that were adapting curriculum and, you know, had a great time and then bring stuff back. And anyway, we had a think tank, and sometimes the speech therapist was adapting the curriculum because she was going to use it with her speech therapy kids, and she was going to use the history stuff with her speech therapy kids. So we really had a great time. So as I come to you, I'm coming to you from the trenches, is what I'm trying to say. But then I also worked for the State Board of Ed for many years because we had an inclusion project at the Illinois State Board of Ed, and we got to go to schools all over and work with districts. So sometimes we'd be in classrooms looking at and working with one child who's been included, but a lot of times we were working at the district level, and we were stepping back and we were saying, well, what do you have? Give us the lay of the land. And what does this look like? So all of a sudden I realized that there's these systems in place. Big systems that exist, and somehow we're a piece of it, and systems support systems. And when you're a parent and when you're a teacher, sometimes you're supporting individual kids within that system. And sometimes that doesn't always go together really well. So I was able to look at systems and say, you know, sometimes the way we set stuff up impacts how my kid's educated. So if there was a classroom for 6 kids, but they had 10 chairs, they might find 3 other kids to be in that classroom that could or could not belong in the classroom. If there's in my one school, there was a gifted program and they had room for 15, and my kid was the 18th one. And so until those other kids moved, he didn't, you know, he wasn't gifted until we, do you know what I mean? Like there's these playing cards, and they move, and we help district look at where our kids educated and who's educating them, and how are they working together, and you know, where are kids, what are they doing, and that type of thing. So we get ahead. So I guess I kind of had like this in the trenches vision, and I also had this kind of a balcony view and working with systems. So anyway, that was the deal, is working with classrooms. So today, and this is like a little bit of a totally Reader's Digest version. But today we're really going to talk, when I talked to Dee Dee, we thought, what can we really do to leave you with some fun tools that you can use? Because it really ends up to be not just about our kids with disabilities or our kids with challenges. It's really about differentiating for all of our kids. And how do we create those kind of rich places where every kid can have access to the curriculum and thrive and learn within those environments? So I said, well, let's pick out the thing that teachers seem to like the best, and that's and the thing that I love to teach, which is these adaptations and accommodations. So we're going to talk about adaptations, accommodations. I'm going to give you some fun stuff to do, and then we're going to create a curriculum mapping, and then we're going to do a showcase of that. And so that means we're going to be really busy, and hopefully it'll go really fast. You'll be like, oh, that's fun, now we get to go home. Because you're all probably thinking it would be fun to go home right now, because the kids are. I appreciate you sticking with me. So we're going to talk about these adaptations and accommodations. This is how I think of them. This is a girl, a Special Olympian, who is a short girl with Down syndrome, who needs the biggest bolster to get up to do her routine. Okay, so the bolster is just to get her to the bars, so she can participate in that activity. And this guy needs he's a little bit taller, and he only needs like a smaller blue bolster to get to his ring so he can participate. And I saw these two, and I thought, you know what, these are adaptations. Sometimes people need a big bolster, right? Sometimes people need a medium-sized bolster, and sometimes they don't need any bolster at all. And sometimes you've got kids that are bringing bolsters for other kids, right, to boost them up. It's almost that simple. The bolster doesn't matter. The bolster is just important to get the kid up to do the activity. So adaptations are really, I look at those as the big umbrella. And accommodations are things that we do for all of our kids. We can do those for any kid. You know, they change how a student accesses or demonstrates their learning. It doesn't change the curriculum or the instructional level or the content. It just changes things that we do all the time, that you all do all the time, to support kids in the way that makes them learn better. We do it all the time. And it is the kid with a hearing problem that needs to sit up close, or that kid that's got a little more, is a little antsy, and so you make sure you can go over and he knows when you tap the counter 2 times he needs to regroup, right? Or you put the kid with all the stuff that's flowing out of his desk over in that corner because you know people can't navigate, and you know he needs to see his stuff on the floor. So we do this all the time. We don't change that curriculum, and we can do that for any kid. But when we do modifications, we really change what it is the student is expected to learn. So when I'm supporting, you know, I kind of wear the parent hat and the special ed hat at the same time. So when we're supporting a student like Bridget, or a student that just has some extra needs in whatever way they do, we need to change what that student's expected to learn. Sometimes we say they're not going to be a part of that learning. And that's what happened with us. That was if we had not advocated for Bridget to be included. Because if everybody was dissecting a frog, I wanted Bridget to dissect the frog. At her level, experience that. The changes are in instructional level, content, or performance. So I kind of think about the modifications as we kind of dismantle the curriculum and reconstruct it so that it fits that kid. And we can do that if they have an IEP. That gives us permission to do that. I mean, there's a little more details that go into it, but pretty much that gives us say we can make modifications to the curriculum for that kid that has that IEP. That kind of gives us permission to do that. So we always looked at first, what can we do to accommodate, and second, with a kid with an IEP, what do we need to do to modify that curriculum for them? And the reason I feel this is important, because you're all saying, well, that kind of totally makes sense, but we all have to have the same language when we're talking about it. So I would work with districts and we would be doing training, and then it would be, I'd say in September, how are things going? And people are like, oh, they're going fine. And then by the time November came, how are things going? They said, everything's going fine except Rosie got, all Fs. And I'd be like, she's in third grade. What do you do with all Fs in third grade when you're in, well, she can't do the curriculum. And it's like, oh, wow, things are not going well because we haven't really talked about, we haven't gotten this piece. We need to have that kind of communication with each other all the time. If that student needs modifications, what are they going to be? And I think it's an art to do good modifications. I've been in schools, a lot of different schools. We give all of the kids with IEPs that are in regular conditions a C. That was what somebody told me. Wow, it's not good, So you just kind of want to, we want to do it better. It's like an art to do that. So I feel like this is important for us to have the same conversation. And we have to use those same terms when we're talking about kids. And it makes it easier. Because I think we have to work smarter than harder. Because the work we do is really hard. The work parents are doing is really hard. And the work you all doing is hard. I've just been here, for like 2 days. I'm like exhausted. I'm thinking, man, you guys are like on a jogging team. You could be like an Olympic, oh, I'm kind of here, and you're here, and then you're grabbing a sandwich, you're chasing people into the bathroom, it's
That was Nurse Mary earlier.
People are working hard, so.